One thing I've neglected to do during my ownership of the calamitous Clio is to tell you all about the history of the car and how it came into my ownership. So pop the kettle on and enjoy. So I first came across this little car back in, I think it was early June 2017, around the 2nd or 3rd of June, I think it was. It was the night, actually, funny enough, of the Champions League final back in 2017, for anybody there of a football orientation. And I was just walking through Bray in County Wicklow and stumbled across this parked on the side of the road. Now, obviously, that was 2017. This car was 19 years old at that point. These were very, very rare on Irish roads, even by then. The car wasn't even 20 years old and it was already extremely rare. You don't see too many Mark 1 Clios. I've only spotted a handful of them here anyway in the last 8 or 9 years. And I only know of probably 3, including this one. There's a 94 plater in Dublin, and there's a 97 plater about 10 minutes down the road from me in the kind of Clogherhead, Termonfeckin area. Although I haven't seen that now for over a year, so don't actually know if that one still survives or not. It's a base model, that one, the RL. This is an RN, and the RT, I think, was top of the range. Anyway, I digress. So you spotted it, got a few pictures, and thought, God, I'd love to own that at some stage. Fast forward then to 2021, and again, I'm in Bray, out there for the day, bit of a day out. It's a lovely little spot if you've never been. Walking up the street, I thought to myself, oh, I wonder if that old Clio's still there. And it was. So it had survived that 4 years. Again, got a few pictures, thought, what an old survivor. Great to see it still on the road. I'm delighted with that. Then fast forward about 6-7 months. That was April 2021, by the way. Fast forward then to February 2022. Again, find myself in Bray for the day. And I'm walking up the road that it lived on. And it's still there. And I'm thinking, this is my 3rd time I've spotted it. I'd love it. I've really gotten into buying old cars now at this stage. I want it. So I hastily scribbled down a note as quick as I could, popped it under the windscreen wiper, and I seem to remember that day actually then started to rain in the evening as I was heading home, and I thought, oh, no, it's going to be soggy, it's going to be wet through, I'll never hear back. And I mean, I've popped notes on other cars during the last year or two and heard nothing back from any of them, so I just thought this will be another case of that. So didn't really think too much more of it, and went about my life. So then we arrive in October 2022. I'm sitting there with a cup of tea on a Saturday afternoon, minding my own business at home, and my mobile phone rings, and I'm thinking, oh, this could be anybody. Don't really get a lot of calls, so I'm thinking, oh, who's this? So I answer it, and it's the owner of this Clio asking me, did I want to buy it? Because it's just failed its NCT, and she's looking to get rid of it. And I thought, yes, hell yes. I don't care if it's on fire, I want it. So we agreed a price, a low price, 200 quid. And a week later, I did the journey down to Bray, and it was mine, and I picked it up. So that's kind of the story of how I came into its ownership. She said, the little old lady that was selling it, that she'd kept my note, so obviously the rain didn't destroy it. Kept my note, pinned it onto her fridge, and thought, I'll give him first dibs if it ever fails its NCT or ever come to sell it. Apparently her mechanic had told her that it wasn't really worth keeping on the road, and I can perhaps see why he said that with its numerous faults. But to be honest, I've driven it a bit and it drives really, really well, so maybe he actually was wrong. I do think there's a good car in here somewhere, as I've said on numerous different videos, of course, and I've been chronicling the life and times of this little car. So yeah, I got chatting then to the little old lady as I was purchasing and doing the paperwork and that, and she gave me a brief overview of the history of the car during her ownership. The previous owner of this car was a elderly lady by the name of Deirdre. That's not her real name, but just in the interest of privacy, we're going to call her that from here on in. So when I went to collect the car back in October, she was telling me about the history and the story of it, and it was really rather lovely. She actually learned to drive in this car. So she obviously came to driving rather late in life, but this was her first and only car so far, so she was really, really sad to get rid of it. But I assured her, I promised her that I was going to keep it on the road and nurse it back to full health. Mechanically seems fine, but of course the fact that it was her first car is borne out in the bodywork, which is absolutely horrendous. There's scrapes, scuffs, missing body trim panels, a big dent in the back. It's just seen cosmetically better days, but I quite like that. It's very original, it's very honest, very genuine. The story of that huge dent in the back is really rather interesting. Apparently a few weeks after she bought it, she inadvertently reversed this poor little thing into a scaffolding pole and in the process smashed the rear windscreen. So the rear windscreen's a replacement and there's a huge dent on the rear tailgate. But again, I quite like that. It's just honest, isn't it? Now, for years, this car was parked in a rather prominent location in Bray. It was on Quinsborough Road. So if you Google that, whack it into Google Street View, from about 2013, 2014 onwards, you're going to see this car parked on the street in almost every image. I think there's one from 2017, 2021 and 2022, I think. And there's cars in all of them. Before it lived on Quinsborough Road in Bray, I think it spent a couple of years of its life under Deirdre's ownership in, I think it was the Killiney area of South County Dublin. Now, I managed to find the address off an old NCT certificate which was supplied with the car. And of course, I've got to zoom in to actually see it. The image is not very good. Now, with this car's general shoddiness and its rather elderly nature, it is rather well known in Irish weird car and crap car circles. It's been photographed quite widely on social media by different accounts. So here is a selection of photos from the last couple of years. Also, Deirdre was telling me that this car was subject to a theft attempt during one of the COVID lockdowns. I don't know which one it was of the 3 or 4 we had. But she was telling me then that the head for the radio was nicked, so sadly that's gone. We'll never ever find that. And the wannabe thief tried to jump start it, but the trusty Renault immobiliser thwarted him, which was great news. That would explain, of course, why the interior light lens is missing, because the immobiliser unit is directly in front of it. Also, that knackered mirror is apparently due to some vandalism by people who used to walk past this on the street. Think it was a heap of absolute rubbish, which of course it is. And they used to just kick it off. She told me that lads from the local pub used to come round and the kids used to come round and boot the mirror off. So that would explain obviously why that's knackered. But it's nothing a bit of gaffer tape hasn't sorted anyway. Sadly, the car didn't come with any sort of service history or any old invoices or receipts. It didn't even come with a handbook, which is always a little bit disappointing. But of course, for 200 quid, I can't really complain. But one really handy thing was that there was a big bundle of old tax discs and a lovely bundle of old NCT set. So I was able to line them all up and have a little look through at the mileages over the last couple of years when they started recording them on the NCT certificates, and also a bit of the tax history of the car. Again, it's not an awful lot, but it's just nice to have that to show that it's been taxed every year, it's been NCT'd every year, hasn't spent a lot of time laid up or off the road. So that always gives you a little bit of peace of mind. Oh, and the timing belt has been done, which is another relief. There's a sticker on the inside of the engine bay to prove that. I think it was done in 2017, so that's what, 5, almost 6 years ago. And the mileage has hardly changed since then, so hopefully that's got another good few years left in it. So that's that then for the history of this little Renault Clio. Go and check out then Quinsborough Road in Bray and have a little look on Street View from the past 10 years or so, and you'll see it on quite a lot of them. So it's lovely to kind of look back and say, there's the little Clio, I own that now, that's fantastic. So yeah, I'm really happy with it, and I'm just glad that I've been able to save it. Look, it's slow progress and the indicators are a huge issue. I've really got to try and get those fixed. Don't know what the problem is. I've got a multimeter here, which I'm going to have to use obviously to try and diagnose the problem. Never used one of these before, so don't really know what I'm doing. It's going to have to be a little bit of Googling and YouTubing to see how to use them, but I'm sure they're fairly easy. Thankfully though, all the other electrics seem to work, but that's my chief area of concern is the indicators. But to be honest, you know, it's an old car. It's an old French car. You're going to have electrical issues. That's just the nature of them. What can you do? But it lives on and it will live on. I'm determined to get this thing back on the road and back fit and back fighting. It's got a great history behind it. I've got a bit of a personal connection knowing it for the last 5 or 6 years, having first spotted it, of course, as I mentioned, in 2017 and saying I'd love to own it, and now I do. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little video. Like it, subscribe, share it, fire away. And if you want, you can support Crap Car Collective on Patreon. The link is in the description below to help me keep my fleet of old knackered rubbish cars on the road. But for now, that's it from the Clio, and I'll see you in a future video. Goodbye.